I'd like to move on by inviting Ms. Dubravka Negre from the European Investment Bank to address us.
Thank you.
Do you have slides, or do you want?
Yes, I think it should be with the questions. Thank you. Dear organizers, the minister, guests, it's a pleasure to be here today to speak about EIB's activities in the Balkans and in Montenegro. But first, before starting to go a little bit more into details, just to remind us of European Investment Bank's roles and activities. We are the EU bank, the bank of the EU member states and EU financing arm. Have been now having 60 years of experience in project financing, and we are following the EU policy, and in the Western Balkans operate under the EU mandate. This is the case for Montenegro as well. We are the non-for-profit organization, so we don't necessarily land on commercial terms. Nonetheless, we cooperate a lot with the local banking sector. We're the largest multilateral lender and the borrower, and we are headquartered in Luxembourg. Nonetheless, have 44 local offices and are enforcing our local presence even more. For the time being, we only have a regional office based in Belgrade, but nonetheless, we're hoping to enforce our local presence even more. We only have, I say only, around 3,000 employees, which is relatively modest number for the amount of our activity or the level of our activity in Europe and outside of Europe. So just briefly, our 2016 activity figures show almost 84 billion of lending, which we actually finance through our borrowing on the capital markets under very favorable terms that we then transfer to our clients. Most of our activities, I would say 90% of it, is based in the EU. Nonetheless, around 10% is outside of EU, and the larger recipient outside of EU are actually enlargement countries and potentially EU candidates, as our role to accompany them on their accession to the EU. As far as our product range, we are lending, blending, and advising. Lending mostly through loans, but not only, also through guarantees and participation in equity funds and quasi-equity. European Investment Fund, which is part of the EU group, is very active also in the SME sector through the notably provision of guarantees, which should help reduce collateral requirements, which is one actually of the key issues for the raise of activities of the local banking sector. We are very active, as my colleague from EBRD said, also in combining EIB finance with the EU budget, mostly through the connectivity agenda and the Berlin process, where we are trying to blend our support and our financial instruments with IPA funding or Western Balkan Investment Framework funding. We have started to be quite active in the last couple of years in advising and helping project preparation activities, which are crucial for successful project implementation, and which is one of the key shortcomings that we have experienced, in particular in the Western Balkans. We are very experienced in the financing of PPPs and concessions, and there the countries, or rather members of the European PPP Expertise Center, of which Montenegro is a member, can benefit in advising and strengthening of the institutional and legal framework, which are necessary prerequisites for the PPP development, but also upstream project preparation. Last year, 2016, we have on lent some 1.4 billion euros to PPPs and concessions in Europe and outside of Europe, of which some developing countries such as, or emerging markets such as Turkey and Slovakia. When it comes to the Western Balkans, we operate in Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Kosovo, and the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, as well as in Albania. We have very strong cooperation with public authorities, local banking sector, as I already mentioned, but as well as IFIs with whom we cooperate a lot in project financing. We have very, I would say, strong activities in transport and energy, financing of SMEs, health and education, as well as environmental protection. As far as Montenegro, in the last 6 years, we have on lent some 250 million euros, but in the last 15 years, some 560 million. As I say, mostly concentrated in transport, energy, SMEs, but also environmental protection. To the support of small and medium-sized enterprises, around 60% of this amount has gone, notably via local banking sector. When it comes to some landmark projects in Montenegro, since I would say 13 years or more, we are active in the road rehabilitation and modernization projects, very active in the railways sector, and just recently have signed 20 million of EIB financing combined with 20 million grants, with the aim to connect Montenegro and Serbia through the rail network. Very active in water and sanitation investments involving 10 different municipalities, and more than 50 million euros invested so far, and small and medium-sized enterprises, as I have mentioned, through the support of the Development Fund of Montenegro, and recently signed 50 million euro contract. My colleague from EBRD has spoke about macroeconomic overview of the country, so I would not repeat myself there. I think we have stated that there is medium-term economic growth projection around 3%, with moderate inflation. High employment still, which we hope would be tackled through some new labor law and stronger employment support policies. Very important there, insufficient practical learning that we have heard previously from the Minister of Education. And EIB would be happy to do more in the education sector in Montenegro to tackle those shortcomings. I will try to shorten up a bit, and just to mention several structural gaps, which are not so much different than other Western Balkan countries. I would say most gaps are in human capital, innovation capacity, energy, and strategic infrastructure. We have heard that there is investment in motorways. Montenegro is the only country of the Western Balkans that does not have a motorway in its country, and this will bring not only Montenegro to be connected, but also hopefully more private sector investment as a consequence. As far as how we could all jointly address infrastructure gaps in Montenegro, just a few thoughts on potential exploitation in hydropower and renewable energy. We've heard that there are plans in that sector, as well as investments in energy efficiency and carbon footprint. The focus on tourism sector as an essential growth driver given national endowments, and there EIB happily looking into potentially supporting cultural heritage program in Montenegro, which should help boost the tourism sector. On the institutional side, we believe that there should be more done on contract enforcement and better property rights, rule of law, and better function of judicial system, but nonetheless market liberalization and privatization. I would not repeat myself on the side of the banking sector and reduction in NPLs that my colleague has already mentioned. Whether EIB can do more and better, yes, we do hope so. Not only through the existing initiatives, but also through new ones. We're hoping to promote growth or to contribute to higher investment by the private sector through supporting infrastructure investments in order to get to the multiplicator effect and contributing further to the economic growth in the country. And we also hope that we can contribute mainly via employment generation and financing of small and medium-sized enterprises, which are the key for growth and employment. When it comes to new initiatives that we are putting in place and that have been endorsed by the European Council. Last year, it's to help Western Balkan countries build economic resilient economies, as well as address aggravated need for infrastructure and related services by supporting public sector, including municipalities, as well as public sector entities without recourse to the state, as well as boosting employment opportunities by providing support to the private sector through SMEs, corporate financing, as well as support to PPPs, which I have already mentioned. When it comes to numbers and volumes and how we are hoping to do so is to, in the next 4 years, to catalyze 3.5 billion euros more in the Western Balkans. So on top of 1.5 billion already planned, we are hoping to invest another 2 billion euros in the region. And as I said, with the aim to foster social and economic integration with focus on sectors such as water, sanitation, waste management, support to SMEs, energy generation and transmission, transport, health, education, and human capital. Thank you very much for your attention.